Joining us now, the independent senator for the great state of Arizona, Kyrsten Sinema, joins us. Senator, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you guys today?
We're doing good. Let's get right into it. The border, D.C. border negotiations, you're all over it. I think that, you don't have to live just in Arizona to know that the border is a mess. You can go to Chicago. You can go to New York. I mean, you can go all over the country. So you, from what I understand, you're down to like the final items, and you're close to presenting some sort of a framework to your colleagues. What are you presenting? What's in this? What's in this? I guess bill or framework or text.
Well, I'm glad you guys have asked this, and you're right. I mean, this unmitigated crisis is finally being seen beyond the states of Arizona and Texas. Folks all across the country are seeing, the negative impact of this crisis. We, of course, have been living with this for, 4 decades. And so it's unfortunate that the rest of the country is feeling it, but I hope that Arizonans are at least seeing that other folks in the country are understanding how serious this is. We all know that the status quo is not sustainable. It is a crisis at any way that you look at this. And so what we're doing in our legislation is really addressing 2 key issues. And, of course, this is incredibly complex. It's very technical, which is why it's been taking so long for us to do this. We want to do it right. But we're really addressing 2 key issues. Number one, cartels are exploiting the asylum process in our country right now and are funneling migrants into the United States, claiming asylum. And, frankly, most of these people, the vast majority of these people, have no claim to asylum. Mm-hmm. To seek asylum in this country, you have to have faced persecution or torture in your home country. It has to be unsafe for you to live there. And many of the people who are coming to the U.S. right now through this method are actually what we call economic migrants, people who want to work in our country, seek a better life. So we're reforming the asylum system so that we're protecting those folks who have a likelihood of getting asylum in our country by clearing out the folks who have no claim, and reducing the backlog so that the folks who actually have a right to asylum can get access to the system to get settled in the U.S., and that those who do not qualify are turned back around and sent back home. So that's part number one. And part number 2 is to actually gain operational control of the border. Right now, as we see every single day in southern Arizona, thousands of people are entering through holes in the border wall, and who are just entering the country and waiting to interact with Border Patrol. We are going to institute a new system that allows our Border Patrol agents and Department of Homeland Security to actually provide real security at that border and not allow people in when they are not lawfully allowed to enter. And that'll be a huge relief to the communities like Yuma and Lukeville, Nogales, Bisbee. I mean, all of our communities in southern Arizona that have just seen this huge influx of migrants. That will be a massive change for them and allow us to have order and safety and security at the border.
Talking to Kyrsten Sinema, a senator from right here in Arizona, as you guys know, and you've been really working hard on this. I've seen the likes of Chris Coons, your former colleague out there from Delaware. So, we differ from the Republicans because they want money for border agents, which sounds great, but they don't really want to fix the asylum process. Is that the big hurdle of the thing that is fixing that process? I think you do that, you're going to solve 70% of this stuff.
Well, you're right. And actually, the negotiators, myself, Chris Murphy, and James Lankford, one Republican, one Democrat, and myself, we are aligned on wanting to actually solve the asylum system and close the loophole so the cartels are no longer controlling it. But we also need to gain, again, operational control of the border so that we have an orderly process, we know who's coming in, and that we don't have lines and lines of thousands of folks in Lukeville sitting in the desert day after day, waiting to come into the country. That's not safe. That's not secure. It's not good for anybody.
Right.
So we are really aligned on the goal. And it's no surprise that Democrats and Republicans have different ideas of how to reach that goal. My job, it won't surprise you two to hear, my job, as I see it, is to help bring those two parties together, bridge the differences in their opinions, and find a consensus path forward.
Senator Sinema, in part 2 of your plan about gaining operational control of the border, you mentioned let the Border Patrol actually stop people from coming in. If like there's a hole in the wall where the cartel has sawed through, like in Lukeville. Explain to me how you're going to give the Border Patrol power
to expel.
To what? Can they just turn them around and push them back into Mexico, or how does that work?
Well, we actually had something kind of similar to this for a number of years during the COVID emergency, right? So we used a process called Title 42, where folks weren't allowed to just enter the country if they didn't have a purpose to be here, if they didn't have permission, if the government didn't have advance notice they were coming. That authority expired, of course, at the end of the health emergency. And the government really needs a tool to be able to say to folks, you can't come in between the ports of entry. You can't walk through the desert and gain entry to our country. Now, as we know, this has been our life in Arizona, my whole life, right? I'm a native-born Arizonan from southern Arizona. And there are people who come into our country between the ports of entry. But usually those individuals in times past were detained, interviewed, and determined whether or not they had a legal path in our country. And if they didn't, then they were returned to their home countries. And we need to reestablish a system that allows us to return people to their home countries when they don't have a legal authorization to be in the country.
What's the timeline here? Because I know we're coming up potentially another shutdown. I know you spoke. Did you speak with the Speaker of the House, Mike Johnson, last week about this? So I'm sure that between Congress and Senate, you guys are trying to get stuff done. Is there a timeline that you're hoping to get something out there?
Well, our number one priority, of course, is to prevent a government shutdown. And funding for 4 of our federal agencies expires a week from tomorrow. That would be Friday the 19th. So it is everyone's joint top priority to ensure that we do not face a shutdown in 8 days. And I feel good about Congress's willingness and ability to work together to prevent that shutdown. So that will be top priority next week. But make no mistake that I will still continue to be working quietly behind the scenes, as I always do, with my colleagues to nail down an agreement on this border and asylum reform package. And we intend to share it with our colleagues as soon as the text is ready. Now, again, as I mentioned at the top of our interview, it's incredibly complex. It's incredibly technical. And so we're being very careful in our drafting to make sure that we're writing it in a way that it will stand the test of time, it will be upheld against litigation, and that it can actually be implemented effectively. So we're taking our time to be careful, but we expect to have something in the near future for folks to see.
All right, last one for Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema. What are we doing with re-election? Well, what are we waiting for? It's 2024.
We have to ask. It's the rules, the law.
I mean, come on, it's 2024. You gotta. What's the deal?
Well, I appreciate you guys asking, and asking in such a nice way, so I'm grateful for that. It won't surprise you when I tell you that I am 100% fully focused on solving the border crisis for our state. There is nothing more important for Arizona.
I totally get it.
Than to solve this.
But you got to make a decision soon, right?
Yeah.
Have you set a date that you're going to make a decision?
It's a drop dead date. I'm in, I'm out.
Nope.
You want to beat, you could beat these two. Right? I'm an independent. You're an independent. Listen, you could beat these two. You got to jump in the race, right?
Well, we're going to talk about politics another day. But what I can't wait is to come back on the show soon to tell you about all the elements of this border package and how I'm going to get it passed through the Senate and the House, how we're going to get it signed into law, and for the first time in 40 years, actually make a measurable difference for Arizona's safety and security. And I got to tell you guys, I'm very excited for that. There's a lot of work left to do, but that's what I'm working on, and I think I'm going to get it done.
I like the plan. I do. And the next time you come on, we'll talk about the plan. But then tell us if you're running in 2024 too. Is that cool?
I appreciate you guys so much.
Okay. All right. Thanks, Senator. We appreciate it.
Thank you guys so much. Have a great day.
All right. Arizona Senator Kyrsten Sinema. The plan looks good to me. I mean, it's a 2-part plan. The cartel is exploiting the asylum process. Let's try and fix that. Part two, you gain operational control of the border. You actually let the Border Patrol do their job. And the final thing that doesn't have to do with the border, she has to make a decision sooner or later. I wonder if I honestly, Chad, for re-election, let's say she's not running. I wonder if she just never says anything.
Well, I think at some point you're probably going to, because you have to file paperwork and they're going to know that.
No. I mean,
stuff's going to
let's say she's not running. In her head, I'm not running. She doesn't say a word.
No, I think she would.
I don't think so.
I think she would.
Thanks for watching Gatos and Chad. Click to watch more and tap the button in the middle to subscribe to KTAR News.